Don Martin and Roger Lassard. I'm John Fink, Chair. First item of business is the adoption of the minutes from the January 7th meeting. Is there a motion regarding the minutes?
I make a motion that we adopt the minutes as written.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, please. Next item of business is final plan for a major use site development entitled R.F. Jordan and Sons Gravel Borrow Pit. The proposal is to extract gravel from 30 acres of a 77-acre property, tax map 52, lot 7 in the rural zone. The property is accessed via the 7970 road from Route 179. Is someone representing the applicant, please?
Yes, Andrew McCullough representing PRB LLC and RF Jordan and Son. At the last meeting, there were several items that we discussed. One was a letter that was signed by Patrick Jordan that was identifying him as executive trustee of PRB LLC, the owner of the property. That is included. There were several items that we also discussed, and as you can see, I addressed those to the best of my memory. And one, I addressed dust control both in the pit and on the access road. Talked about equipment fueling, and specifically that refueling will be done in the adjacent pit where there is this concrete pad, and that is all set up with the required materials to conform to the state statute. I also talked about the operator performing adequate surveys to keep track of where the elevations are in the pit. And I did include the information that I was able to get from the monitoring well that's actually in the town of Hancock. That is included. And two last things. One, I was asked about the need for a monitoring well, and what I've proposed to you in this final application is that we would sample one time annually, similar to what we did last year, to look at the water quality and also to determine depth to groundwater. And then when the excavation in the new pit, the Hurley pit, if you will, reaches 175, we will put in a monitoring well that will then assist RF Jordan in identifying where exactly that groundwater table is, if it is indeed at 150 or 147 or what have you. So that will allow us then to stay 5 feet away or stay 5 feet above that. And lastly, I did provide a note on the final plan, or I did provide two notes on the plan. Notes number 4 and number 5. One is the owner of the gravel pit shall install signs along the access road at all the intersections to identify access to the Hurley pit for emergency vehicles. And 5, if the berm or buffer between the existing gravel borrow pit operation and the proposed operation is to be removed, a written agreement shall be prepared and ultimately recorded in the Hancock County Registry of Deeds.
questions from the board? Oh, by the way, you'll notice there were 4 of us. It is a quorum, but a tie vote is a denial. And so it is up to you whether to proceed or to come back at a time that we might have a larger number of members.
I choose to proceed.
No one has refused to proceed under these, but, okay. Questions?
The question that I have is in the application, there are these things from the DEP.
And Daryl, I just provided them as information, strictly informational, because Mr. Kenshay had been here at the meeting 10 months, 11 months, however many months ago, and had asked about whether they had the permits to have the expanse open that they have open. And so I just wanted to be able to answer that and provide that information in case there was a question.
Okay, and they were very helpful. Thank you for including those. Is there one for this pit?
Not yet. I mean, there will be.
Okay, so that would be a condition of the approval then, that permit gets
Yep.
filed, I
Yep.
guess.
And it is, what it's called is a notice of intent. I mean, it is essentially a permit, and it's called a notice of intent.
The other issue that I have with the application, and I'm just going to say that, not all board decisions are unanimous. The section of the ordinance that talks about groundwater impact, the letter that you had written, the conclusion to the part of the ordinance that talks about groundwater impact, the letter says that it just doesn't apply, and I disagree with that. I don't have a good feeling about what the effect on the groundwater resources are going to be, because this is part of an aquifer and the city has some ties to using the aquifer. With regard to the quantity, the level of groundwater, or the risk to the aquifer, I don't feel like that was adequately addressed in any way. And so I'm sort of opposed to making a motion on this application favorably. But I understand that I am only one voice of the board. So, Mr. Chairman, if somebody else does make a motion.
So we're talking about on Article 6.
606.8 M.
606.8 LII.
M.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah, double
You
I.
have that
It just says,
part of the ordinance?
section F, or the paragraph F, an analysis and evaluation of the effect of the development on groundwater resources. And then it goes on to give an example. In the case of a residential development, it gives some criteria.
Yeah.
Since it's not a residential development, we're stuck with the first sentence. An analysis and evaluation of the effect of the development on groundwater resources. And the applicant's, I guess, special letter or expert response says that F doesn't apply.
Yeah.
So personally, I guess I'm just not comfortable with not knowing what the impact is to the aquifer.
So,
Well, I guess in this last page, items E, F, and G appear to relate to water quality impacts from subsurface septic systems. So, the conclusion is that no wastewater disposal is planned for this site, and therefore, it is our opinion that these items do not apply to the proposed gravel pit expansion or proposed gravel pit. So, I mean, from a standpoint of the situation where you are putting something, we're not putting something into that site that is going to degrade the water quality. And so that's why he's addressed it in that way.
Okay.
Yep.
And I understand what he wrote, and I'm saying that I don't have a comfortable feeling about the impact of this activity on the aquifer.
Was that in his conclusion, Darryl?
Andrew read it word for word. I mean, that's he tries to address items E, F, and G all together.
Mm-hmm.
And says that they do not apply.
Is that Exhibit 16, Andrew?
It's right in front of Appendix A.
It's in the FGSCMT report.
Yeah.
Yeah, 16.
Andrew, if I may,
Mm-hmm.
I think what's bothering Darrell is the requirement that that it applies to any part of a project located over a significant sand and gravel aquifer by the Maine Geological Survey.
Well, I mean, again, those last three items are specifically focused on, I mean, the way they're written, they are specifically focused on if you are introducing something foreign over the aquifer versus a removal of materials. No, quite frankly,
Well, you're basing that on G, aren't you?
no, I mean, E and F, I mean, sometimes in the case of, you know, if it's wastewater, a lot of times they'll look at, if it's an engineered system that's going to introduce large volumes of wastewater, they're concerned with nitrogen and those things, and nitrogen transport, phosphorus transport, things like that.
But let's take a look at what the rules that we're working with here say. Hydrology, a groundwater impact analysis prepared by a groundwater hydrologist or designed and prepared by a professional engineer registered in the state of Maine for projects involving, and then we go to 2, involving any part of a project located over a significant sand and gravel aquifer. So the statement, the ordinance requires the analysis, and then it's the groundwater impact analysis says it should show at least the following information. But it doesn't say you shall only do this if foreign materials are introduced, such as sewage. It's just that if the analysis is required, it shall contain at least this information.
We did hear some testimony from members of the public that were concerned about the impact on the ground table, the blueberry fields, other things. So I thought, oh, a groundwater impact analysis will clear all of those items.
I mean, that, the abutter who expressed his concern was to the south, in general terms, to the south. And so, I mean, the report concludes that,
The water's draining the
it's
opposite direction.
draining in the opposite direction, and to the north and northwest, to the stream, lake, or wetlands. So,
But that's,
you know, as far as, I mean, from a standpoint of, if there's a drought condition, the groundwater table would be lower. So if we are excavating to either our fixed elevation that we've proposed based on the monitoring well and the test pits that we've done, we're 5 feet above that. And, you know, not only are we required by statute to do that unless we have a permit to go closer, but we're not going to be, if that groundwater table is lower, we're not going to be impacting it by still remaining greater than, let's say, our 5 feet from that depth. You know, we're not going to be introducing foreign material that's going to be contaminating it, whether that groundwater table is 20 feet below or whether it's 5 feet below. So that quality, and I mean, honestly, you know, in the water quality sampling that we've offered to do, you know, annual testing would be the best indicator of, over time, of if there is any impact to the water table.
And I did the best I could to make part of this public record any of the readings that we have, any of the readings that Hancock has, any of the situations involving the wells. I mean, it's all part of this record. So if anybody wants to take any action of it, I mean, the information is all here. I'm not qualified to make an analysis of the information or compare previous data points. I'm merely trying to collect up enough information to say, you know, this is where we're at, and was hoping for some sort of specific clarification of, you know, what is the impact to the aquifer. And I think I would care less if it didn't involve part of Ellsworth's secondary water supply, some sort of backup.
Well, I mean, two things. I mean, one, the belief is in this report that it's not flowing toward the Ellsworth's water supply.
Okay, so that would address, I guess, some sort of contamination issue. Do you reduce the recharge rate of the aquifer? Do you impact its ability to recover from things? Like, what is the impact of the excavation and removing all of that material? What sort of state, what is the risk? It feels like there's risk by removing that amount of material from an aquifer, but like I said, I'm not an expert. And Mr. Chairman, I guess really, like I said, you know, I have this opinion, and the best thing I think for the applicant to move things forward for the board is if someone were to make a motion, I would be free to vote my opinion on it, and then we could move forward.
you could always vote against your own motion. Michelle?
Can I say a few things? I mean, I respect what you're saying, but things I'm thinking about is the statement that the gentleman made, Mr. Fissenden, that it didn't impact. I mean, that's his position. It doesn't, you know, that's just saying, well, I don't believe it impacts I mean, it has to, I don't think that, was it E, F, and G, applies here. That's his position, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? But he still did, this man was not aware of issues to Blueberry Field or this and that. He did provide, the way I look at it, is a report that's consistent with things that they would do for the DEP and look for, I mean, when they are questions.
This is more than we would provide to the DEP.
And it's not, I don't want to say generic, but I think what he looked at is the things that they look at in these cases. And I think that what the DEP, one of the things the DEP is concerned is definitely not digging, below a certain level to ensure that you're not impacting that water, for the quality of that water. And I think that the way it's done, from what I understand in the field, is that they dig, when they hit water, they stop. In this case, they have a lot more information than going and just trying to figure it out. They know exactly where that water table is, or they have a much better idea. So from that point of view, from where I sit, there was no conclusion, Daryl, that said, yes, there is no impact, but I wonder if there's enough information here for you to consider trying to see if there is no impact or not. That's where I'm going.
Okay, I hear you.
Are there other members of the board with questions, comments?
Is there any way that you can resolve this? Would you have to come back at this time?
For, like, if maybe the board would consider that if we are provided a final conclusion statement to A, B, and C as listed, you seem to be listing, maybe that's something that.
So would you have to come back next month with?
Well, it depends. If you want to put a condition that'd be reviewed by staff, you could do it that way, I guess. Or you may want to re-see it for yourself.
Either reviews it by the staff or provide the board with more in-depth information from the engineer that looked at it.
If I may, if you do ask Mr. Fessenden to provide more, I would ask that you ask precisely the question that needs to be answered, so that we know exactly.
When I met with Mr. Fessenden, I went out in the field with him, discussed the specific concerns that were voiced, especially the concern of the abutter to the south, Mr. Shea, or the Shea family, and impacts to the water table, and any impacts to the water quality, and it is not written here that he did not believe that there was an impact, but his statements were to me in the field specifically that. And, as we looked at the topography and the geology of the site, that it was draining to the northwest, I believe it is, away from that site. And, that there has not been, I believe that if you look at the original water test that was done, and then the water test that was done this past year, I don't believe there's hardly any change to that. I think it's very similar in result after, and I believe that first water test was done, I kind of think it was 2001. So I think there is some history in demonstrating that the water quality has not changed. And I think that, by doing annual testing and having that on file here at City Hall, I think that will continue to demonstrate that
So you're saying that as presented, that he could provide a statement that there's no, I don't know what the wording is, undue burden or negative impact to the street property, to the water table, and to the water quality?
Mm-hmm.
Before we go further, this is a public hearing. Does any member of the public wish to comment upon this matter? I see no hands raised. Okay. Anyone else, or do we want to proceed to a motion that someone may wish to make?
Can I suggest something?
I don't know, you're not a member of the board.
Can you consider doing a motion on that topic before you do a motion on the entire project?
Motion on the impact analysis?
Yep. I would hate for this entire project to potentially be, I would like you to consider
I
a
don't
motion on that.
see what the point is, because if the project is approved, then the analysis is part of that approval.
And if it's,
If it's not approved, then
will you include in your motion afterwards why it's not approved?
if it's not approved, it could be part of that motion. If the motion is not to approve,
Okay.
if the motion is to approve, then, and it fails, we don't have, it's not normally a part of it. So,
So we have language in the ordinance, if a project is denied, there's when and how they can come back. I just want to make sure that we provide them the opportunity to come back if that is resolved. That's all.
so does anyone have a motion? In that case, unprepared, I will attempt one. With regard to a final plan for a major site use development entitled R.F. Jordan and Sons Gravel Borrow Pit, tax map 52, lot 7. The board finds that the applicant has provided the information that we asked for at the previous meeting, that this is an allowed use in the zone, and we approve this application. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Good.
Hearing none?
The
I was
DEP
hoping-
permit is conditional? The DEP notice of intent?
Yes, and that the applicant files the DEP notice of intent before proceeding further. Acceptable, Roger?
Yeah.
All those in favor, please?
We provide, making sure before we vote that we provide in some way that he can provide something to the board to make us feel more comfortable. Is he still gonna have that opportunity?
You're assuming. I don't see how, because the motion will either pass or fail. And he would need to provide any further information at this moment. I don't see how we can do that. And because if it passes, we don't need the additional information. If it fails, again, we don't need any additional information. It rises and falls on what we've got here. So, any other, all those in favor, please. Opposed? You got it. Thank you. All right, now you can be mad at us.
Oh, I'm good. I want to thank the applicant for adding all those things in that you did. I do appreciate that.
Okay. Next item of business is final plan for a major subdivision entitled Johnson Property Subdivision for Philip D. Johnson and Joanne P. Johnson. Proposal is to create 3 lots containing approximately 13 acres in total from a 139-acre property. Tax map 92, lot 25 on the corner of the Bangor and Micklin Road in the rural zone. Is someone representing the applicant, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my name's Dick Day. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, who's also here tonight, or at least half of the applicant, Phil Johnson. We were under the understanding that this was a minor subdivision, not a major subdivision.
Yeah, it is it's classified as a minor subdivision.
Yes, it's, we're carrying on with business that your board last reviewed, I think, in September of last year. It's a 2-lot subdivision up next to the Nice Twice shop on Route 1A. We received your preliminary approval back in September. We've complied with the requirements of the board for adding notations to the plan. There was one specific concern that all lot corners be set before it was brought back to this board for final approval. I'm here to report to you tonight that that was done on snowshoes, as a matter of fact, which would have been a lot more easily accomplished in September. But nonetheless, it is completed. We've had a TRT meeting with the local staff. I believe we've complied with all of the suggestions and requirements as a result of that meeting, and we believe our application is complete and look forward to your favorable review. Be glad to answer any questions that any member of the board might have.
Questions, board?
I know it's been a while since you were in front of us. You're going to tear down the Nice and Twice. That's going to go down, right? That building?
No, it's not.
No, it's going to stay the same.
The Nice Twice building is on one of the lots that we're
Okay, so
asking for
they're just going to
approval.
stay there and
Yeah.
have that lot. Okay.
That's correct.
Other questions? Well, if we don't have more questions, we're not treating this applicant equally.
We can stand that, Mr. Chairman.
All right. In that case, does any member of the public wish to comment upon this application? No? Okay. Does anyone have, what would the board like to do here?
Mr. Chairman, with regard to this final plan for a minor subdivision entitled Johnston Property Subdivision for Philip D. Johnson and Joanne P. Johnson, item number 3 on the agenda, I make a motion that we this meets the section 607 standards and criteria and the applicable articles, and that we approve this project.
Is there a second?
No second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please? Now, we rushed this through so that Andrew can get back up there and then get home to his wife.
Thank you for your time. I'll yield to Andrew.
Next item of business is amendment to a major site use development plan and major subdivision entitled Global Beverage Plaza. The original plan approved October 2014 was to construct 2 5,600 square foot buildings for specialty retail use on 2.2 acres. Tax map 16, lot 3-2 on the corner of Beachland Road and Route 3 in the commercial zone. The proposed amendment is a minor modification to the stormwater management plan. The The approved plan includes 4 under-drain soil filters. The proposed plan eliminates one of those. Is someone representing the applicant, please?
Andrew McCullough, representing the applicant. As we work to prepare the stormwater permit application for the DEP that is required to do the second 5,600 square foot building, we realized that if we slightly adjusted the grades, and by that I mean putting a cross slope on the roadway that we have so that the water drains inward instead of draining outward like we had a portion of it, that we could eliminate what was identified on the original plan as Pond 4, long narrow pond that was below the road or west of the road, if you will. And in doing that, we also could eliminate the discharge to level lip spreader and the discharge onto the abutter, which frankly I feel is as big is the big benefit here. This way, it's a more, for lack of a better word, it's a more controlled plan, more managed, without dispersing stormwater onto the abutter. And so we did that. We have submitted that to the Maine DEP, and they intend to issue their approval of it within the next probably 10 days to 2 weeks. But so in submitting it, a copy of it to the city, and I discussed it with Dwight, and Dwight felt that we needed to come back to amend our plan that was approved by you because we are omitting that Pond 4. Just in summary, there's no other changes to what you reviewed as far as lighting, wastewater, all those issues, landscaping, buffering. This actually provides, a little bit greater separation from the abutter by eliminating that disturbed area. So it slightly reduces the disturbed area, and it meets, it actually exceeds the standard. We are treating 100% of the stormwater from the parking areas and the buildings, and we are treating 91% of the stormwater from the roadway. And in the DEP rules for roadways, the standard is 75%. So we significantly exceed that. And so I'm here to ask for this amendment that, in my opinion, still meets the standards of the city of Ellsworth for the stormwater.
Questions?
So the flow that was going towards that adjacent property, even before the level lip spreader plan, this is intercepting that. So this plan completely removes that?
Mm-hmm. So there's no flow going onto that.
Is there any right now? Are the unimproved condition? I mean, how much have you disturbed, like, the natural flow of things? Does water just go that way now anyway?
Well, I mean,
Or is it so flat that it's really not that?
what it does, I mean, there's even when A level spreader is sited well, sited in accordance with the rules, sized appropriately. It's another item that requires maintenance, and if it's not maintained, it is a significant nuisance. So they have a place. They do. And I've used them plenty of times. But it also increases the potential for issues down the road where utilizing our system and utilizing then the storm drain system that we were authorized to use, we eliminate one potential for a nuisance in the future.
So this new volume that's going towards the existing storm drain system, the system's capable of handling that
Yes, it is.
slight increase in flow? Thank you.
Yep.
Further questions?
Is it because they made Beachland Road because they redid it? Is that why it's a lot easier now to?
And, well, I mean, there was no storm drain
Stormwater.
system there before.
Huh?
There was no storm drain system there before.
There is now, yeah.
There is
Yeah,
now.
so
And
that-
it was sized so that it could take the water from this
Right.
lot.
Okay, so that helped it also.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. No question.
Yeah.
Does any member of the public wish to comment? Well, the fact that there is no member of the public doesn't mean you don't have to ask. What would the board like to do?
Mr. Chairman, with regard to this amendment to major site use development plan and major subdivision entitled Global Beverage Plaza, agenda item number 4, the change to the original plan approved October 2014 to construct these two buildings for retail use, the proposed amendment being a minor modification to the stormwater management plan. The approved plan includes 4 drain filters, and the proposed plan eliminates 1. I make a motion that we approve the amendments.
Is there a second?
Well, it's only as long as you get the letter from DEP.
Oh.
That's on file.
Oh,
That's coming.
Yeah, the approval would be conditional upon
Right,
the
right.
DEP's approval of that
yeah.
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Oh, good point.
Just so you know, there's no building permit that you usually issue without state approval,
Yes,
but
there
it,
are.
there?
Yeah, it's at their risk, yeah.
Anyhow, I think what this does is if the DEP doesn't approve it, and he's back to his original plan, that it preserves it for our purposes too. And it doesn't have to come back to revert.
No, I understand.
Okay.
And the reason we do that is the DEP has 6 months to make approval. With our short building time, we don't hold them to that. They're willing to take the risk and go ahead.
Is there further discussion? If we're ready to vote, all in favor, please? Yeah, oh, that's right.
And I second it.
All in favor, please?
Thank you.
Now you can go home to your wife and not be in trouble. Do you still want to take her a cookie or two?
I think I'll take her a cookie.
Why?
We have plenty of
I
cookies.
thought we did issue
A wise decision.
construction permit until they had all their statement
Now,
and,
There are Mylars to sign?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we
I'll
adjourn the
take
meeting
one.
after
It doesn't
signing
matter
them
to
all.
I saw it take.
Second, all in favor of that motion? Thank you. Okay.
I'll just check it, it doesn't matter. Right now?